A human medic saved an alien general. The aftermath rewrote the galaxy. The battlefield of Epsilon Ridge. The war between the Keth Empire and the United Human Coalition had lasted 23 years. By the time the armies met at Epsilon Ridge, both sides were exhausted, and mercy was an ancient word no one remembered how to pronounce. The sky burned purple from orbital fire. Beneath it, a single human medical unit crawled through the craters, searching for survivors. Lieutenant Mara Eisen, combat medic, was on her 7th hour without oxygen reserves when she found the alien. The body was enormous, 10 feet of muscle and chitin armor. The insignia etched into its chest plate made her blood run cold. High General Taka Reth, commander of the Keth armies. The monster who had bombarded 3 human colonies into glass. His breathing was a wet rasp. One of his 4 hearts still fluttered. She could leave him. No one would know. One press of her boot and history would be avenged. But her hands were already moving. Training over vengeance. She whispered to herself, "You're a medic, not a judge," and opened her kit. 2. The Oath and the Enemy. Keth biology was a nightmare. Redundant organs, fluid that burned like acid, a nervous system that pulsed with electricity. She worked anyway. Tourniquets, graft sealant, emergency plasma. When her med gloves fused from the acid, she kept going barehanded. After 30 minutes, his eyes, facetted, dark gold, opened. He tried to speak, but she pressed a hand to his mandible. "Don't move. You'll rupture the grafts." He studied her face, human and blood-smeared. "You, save me." She hesitated. "That's the job." His voice was a hiss of disbelief. "You are enemy. I'm a medic." The alien's eyes dimmed, but a strange sound came from his throat, almost laughter. 3. The Shelter. A storm rolled across the ridge, lightning igniting the corpses of machines. Mara dragged the general into the remains of a downed shuttle. The place stank of ozone and iron. For 3 days, she treated him. They shared ration paste. They argued about gods, duty, and the meaning of mercy. He told her his empire fought because their son was dying. They needed new worlds. She told him humans fought because the Keth never asked, only took. One night, she said quietly, "Maybe if we'd talked before the killing started, we wouldn't be here." Taka Reth stared into the dark. War is easier than understanding. 4. The Rescue. On the 4th day, Keth transports screamed through the clouds. Sensors had found their general's beacon. Mara tried to hide, but Taka Reth stopped her with a gentle claw. "You will come. I owe you life. I'll be a prisoner." He looked almost amused. "I am your shield." The soldiers who found them were stunned to see the feared general alive and protected by a human. "Bring her," he ordered. Unharmed. The enemy's ship. Aboard the flagship Routher, the air was thick with ammonia and command. Keth medics surrounded their general. Mara was confined to a transparent cell, expecting interrogation. Instead, Taka Reth visited. "You saved me. My people owe a debt. I didn't do it for debt." "Then why?" "Because life matters. Even yours." He tilted his head, the motion slow, almost reverent. "Strange species, you humans." A pause. "Stay. Teach my healers your methods. Perhaps fewer will die." 6. The rumor. Word spread faster than any transmission. A human medic had saved the Keth general. At first both sides called it propaganda. Then images surfaced, her tending alien wounds, him guarding her like kin. Human officers wanted her executed for treason. Keth priests denounced her as a corrupter of honor. But soldiers on both fronts began hesitating before pulling triggers. Some even carried white armbands painted with a red circle, the mark she wore as a medic. The war's rhythm faltered. 7. The Council. 6 months later, the Keth Emperor summoned Taka Reth and his human pet. Mara stood in a hall of glass under a dying red sun. The Emperor's voice thundered. "This creature is our enemy. She poisons your judgment." Taka Reth bowed low. "She healed what your war would have lost. Without her, I would be ash. She is infection. She is proof that mercy is stronger than conquest." The Emperor's claws flexed. Then she will be your burden. Return her to her kind and end this farce. But before they could leave, word arrived: the human coalition wanted peace. For the first time in history, both empires agreed on one thing: negotiation. 8. The bridge. Peace talks began on neutral station Artemis. Mara and Taka-Reth stood side by side, living symbols of the impossible. Outside the viewport, fleets faced each other across the void, engines humming like beasts that had forgotten how to rest. The first meeting was silence. The second was shouting. The third ended with blood. But on the fourth, Mara lost her temper. You all keep counting the dead like trophies. I've seen enough corpses to fill worlds. If this peace fails, it won't be strategy that kills us, it'll be pride. The human admiral scowled. The Keth ambassador hissed. But Taka-Reth rose and said, "She speaks truth. Pride built our empires. Mercy might let them survive." Something shifted then, small, fragile, but real. 9. The attack. Peace has enemies. On the day the treaty was to be signed, a rogue Keth warship decloaked near the station and opened fire. Explosions tore through the docking ring. Panic erupted. Mara ran toward the fire instead of away. Taka-Reth followed, shielding her with his massive frame. Shrapnel pierced his side, but he kept moving, dragging her clear of the flames. "Not again," she gasped, trying to stop the bleeding. He smiled faintly, mandibles trembling. "You saved me once. My turn." The warship's reactor went critical. He threw her into an escape pod and sealed the hatch. Through the glass she saw him turn back toward the fire. The last thing she heard was his voice through the comm. "Tell them mercy was worth dying for." Then the station vanished in white light. The aftermath. Taka-Reth's sacrifice became the cornerstone of the new treaty. Both sides signed it in the wreckage orbiting Epsilon Ridge. The Accord of Two Suns ended a generation of bloodshed. Human and Keth medics built the first joint hospital on neutral ground. They called it Rautha Sanctuary, after his ship. Mara returned to service, not as a soldier but as a teacher. Her lectures began with a single image: a Keth general lying broken under a burning sky, and the human who refused to walk away. 11. 10 years later. Under twin suns, a garden grew where once there had been only ash. Keth children played beside human ones. Shared words formed a new language of coexistence. Mara, hair gone grey, walked the hospital corridors lined with holograms of those who died to keep the peace. At the center stood a statue, Taka-Reth, hand extended not in war, but in greeting. She touched the inscription carved in both languages. Mercy builds empires stronger than fear. 12. Epilogue. The Echo. A century later, scholars debated what had truly ended the Great War. Some said strategy, some exhaustion, some divine fate. But every year, on the anniversary of the Accord, ships from dozens of species paused their engines and broadcast the same short message in every known tongue. Remember Epsilon Ridge. Remember the medic. Because once, in the middle of an endless war, a human saved an alien. And the aftermath rewrote the galaxy.